Huh? Yes. All right. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Brachos, in the Oiz V'Hadar edition, Daf Ches. We're going to start again from Daf Zayin Amid Beis, right 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, the Mar, which means the Amar, Rab Ze'era, V'Shem Rab Abra by Yirmiyah, right? We concluded yesterday's share with the Shalosh Techifos. We're going to actually quickly repeat it and learn a very important Charedim that will point out that here we will have a machloikis between the Yerushalmi and the Babli, how to understand the first of the 3, which is Tekev L'Netilas Yodayim Bracha. What we said yesterday, that's referring to Netilas Yodayim and making Hamoitzi. That's the way the Yerushalmi understands the statement, but just we're going to chazer back what we learned in the Babli, that there they understand it as Mayim Achroinim and benching, as we'll see. We're going to have in this daf the machloikis, when can one lechatchila say the Shema of the morning? L'kula alma, the mishiyakir shir. The shiyakir will mean, let's go with, when it's light enough that one can recognize, can be makir, your acquaintance, when he is 4 amas away, that's the mishiyakir. It's some period of time after Alois. Question is, whether the reciting the Shema from the Alois is only b'di'evet, or whether that's a lechatchila. And the final topic is a topic that we spoke out when we learned here, the Daf Aleph, the story that the Mishnah brought down, which is that when you have a Yachid and a Rabbim, even the Yachid, halacha l'maisa, has to paskin like the Rabbim. And we're going to begin quoting various machlokesen, which will continue into the next daf. And all of that will be a build-up to the question, which is, how did the Rabban Gamliel tell his children that they are allowed to recite the Shema after Chatzos, even though he holds that Shema can be recited until Alois HaShachar, when the Chachamim said, at Chatzos, and he should have l'chu'ura paskin, das Rabim kishitas Chachamim. Okay, so let's Nachmal go, just to repeat it, right? 3 lines before the bottom of the Amid, that the Mar, which means the Amar, Rab Ze'era, B'Shem Rab Abba Bar Yirmiyah, Sholosh Tchifos, saying there are 3 required immediacies. Tekev L'Smicha Shchita, that right after you lean on the animal, which is something that needs to happen by many of the karbonis. The Shchita has to happen, which is why, just for example, that the karbonis that have to be slaughtered, it's fine, Ha'azara, 3 machloikes tanoim, exactly what that means, but the smicha dafka has to be done there. Because you can't do a smicha and then take the animal to another location. The second of the 3 is tekev l'netilas yodayim bracha. Now, I know that we're going to repeat what we said yesterday, that as soon as you are able to, after making the bracha al netilas yodayim, you should make the bracha of hamoitzi. Now, let's go chevra to the charedim, the last line before the bottom of the amid. Tekev l'netilas yodayim bracha. Says the charedim hachinami isa bebabli, right? Peda ketzad mevarchim. That's Masech the brachas. Daf mem beis amud aleph. Umoichach chosam behedya. When you learn the sugi in the Bavi, it's clear. The koi al mayim achroinim, turning to Daf ches amud aleph, guys, we are in the charedim. That what? That take it sheyitel. That right after you wash mayim achroinim, yivarach birchas hamozain, and v'lo yafsek afilu lishtois mayim. And so explains Rashi over there in Bavli and Tosfos and the Rambam, Soif Perek Shisha the Brachos. And I want to just add something. The halacha l'maisa nowadays, if a person were to be mafsik b'dibur between mayim achroinim and benching, they should wash mayim achroinim again. All of that are all of the many Rishonim that understand that pshat in the Bavli. Aber says the Charedim, Amnam be Yerushalmi. Here, Muchach. It's clear that our Gemara understands it. Why? Because since the Amar Kol Mi Shehu Toikev L'Netilas Yadayim Bracha, the Gemara is going to say in a couple of lines, one of the upsides, one of the benefits will be that ein hasatan mekatrik ba'isa su'uda. The satan won't be mekatrik in that meal. Now, says the Charedim, v'i koilin tila achreina, if it's in reference to my machreinim and benching, it's too late. Im kvein kvar soad, umayda hava hava. Of course, others can argue with the Charedim. They can say, 1 second, even after you eat, you have to have a bracha that your body should digest it properly. I get that. I'm just quoting. The Charedim understands, quoting from the Goyis HaMaimonides, that here in the Bavli, at least it also refers to that when you wash al netilas yadayim, you should make the hamoitzi ASAP. Let's go back now to the top of the Amid. And the third, and that was the link of the sugya that we had yesterday, Tekev l'geula tefillah. And as we said, l'kula alma, that refers to Shachris. And that's how the Gemara interpreted the Braisa. It should not contradict the various opinions that we learned yesterday, that you could be oimer devarim after emes v'yatziv, which means by maitiv, okay? But by Shachris for 4, Tekev geula tefillah. Now, just to share a few words that we learn in Chassidus. And that is that life could be defined as movement versus death as stationary. And when it comes to movement, there's really 2 movements, Ratzoi and Shuv. And these are all the movements. Ratzoi means one's desire to get out of oneself, or even better, one's desire to get closer to one's creator, which would demand of one to get out of oneself. And then Shuv would be to bring down the kavanah of the creator into our reality. We're going up and we're going down. And all of these 3 takevs are connected to Ratzei v'Shuv. And the takev is very significant. The takev would mean that if a person goes in either direction for too long or too deep, they're not fulfilling their kavanah. Right? The extreme would be, let's say, the Ratzoi of Nadav and Avihu when they passed away. The other extreme will be koirach, as Chassidus explains, too much shuv. And takev means that we have to figure out the right pattern of the back. And the 4th, and let's keep on learning. And if we'll have more time, we'll just add a few more oisias explaining how each one is something else. Like which one is the Ratzei, which one is the shuv. Takev l'smicha shchita. What's the scriptural source for that? Because since it says, I'm quoting a pasuk in Vayikra, and let me quote the pasuk in its entirety. V'samach yadai al roish karbanai, and in the same pasuk it says v'shachat oisa lifnei oil moyed, and it's all on the same pasuk. And we're darshan semuchin. Why did the Torah juxtapose it? Not in the same verse to tell you v'samach v'shachat that after the smicha should come shchita as soon as possible. Just to know that smicha is shuv, even the Gashmiyas, and shchita is elevation. Let's go right. Tekev l'netilas yadayim bracha. Netilas yadayim is lifting of the hands. Actually, when we make the bracha of netilas yadayim, we're supposed to lift the hands. And the word bracha always means shuv. Bracha means lahavre chasagafanam. Chassidus says to bring it down. You go up, you go down. It means if you're mafsik too much between netilas yadayim and bracha, you go so far into the world of atzilos that you are lost. Vushtatus, it says in Tehillim, su'u yedechem kodesh, and then right away you baruch Hashem. Tekev geula tefillah. Now geula would also means ratzoi, because the ultimate redemption is redemption from self. We're stuck with ourselves, guys, and that's tremendously that brings all the anguish. And people want to run away from self. And the kosher way to run away from self is to run to God, and not to take drugs, lamash. So takev legeula. Now, after a person goes up to God, which is really what happens with Shema, right? The va'ahava on different levels of ava b'chol me'yodecha. Then we have the koyach of bracha. Shemona Esrei is the ultimate bracha, bringing God back into the world. Takev legeula tefillah. Where do we have that? Because at the last pasuk in Tehillim Yutes it says, "Yiyu l'ratzin imrifi," made the expression of my mouth, right? V'hegyon libi, and the thoughts of my heart, right? Lifanecha na l'ratzin. You have to, l'ratzin means should find favor lifanecha. And what does it say right afterwards? Now, really, it says right afterwards, Hashem tzuri v'goyali. So really, in this pasuk itself, you have Hashem tzuri v'goyali, the end. The pasuk speaks about geula, And in the pasuk it says, in other words, the bracha, the power of our mouth, that our word should be responded to favorably by God. But not only do you have it in the same pasuk, but also, let's touch in the next kapitel Chaf, it says, Yad Hashem b'yom tzara. In other words, there's a tefillah that is responded to, and then there is a tzara for which you need to have a greater siyata d'shmaya, a greater bracha. Even for a tzara, you will be responded to when Hashem Tzuri Vigoy Ali is going to be mentioned and experienced prior to. Okay. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Bun, Kol Mishu Toikiv Smicha L'Shchita. One of the consequences will be when you get this balance correct, Ein Psul Noigeya Ba'oisa Karbid. No disqualification will even touch that offering. Says the Pnei Moshe, the second line on top of the Amid. Muftach Loisha Ye'era Shub Psul Achar Kach Ba'oisa Karbid. I just want to speak out, very similar maybe to the proof of the Hagos HaMaimis. Knows when you did it right, so what happens afterwards will go good. Halachically will go good. The next, Chol Mishu Toikev L'Natilas Yadayim B'Racha. Again, we're going to go with Hagos HaMaimis. That means that after you make the Al Natilas Yadayim Mayim Achroinim, then you make the Hamoitzi as soon as you could. Ein Hasotin Mekatrik Ba'oisa Hasu'uda. This is again what will happen afterwards, after your son. Chol Mishu Toikev Go L'Tfilah. The Ein Hasotin Mekatrik. Listen to this. Not during that tefillah. Ba'oisa Hayoim, that entire day. How great is that? Amen Rab Zeira. Says Rab Zeira, hold on, I didn't experience that. Ano the Chafiz Geula L'Tfilah. I did that, and when he's not talking about our davening that he verbalized Goal Yisrael Nishman Esther, that means he mamish davened the way a Chasidish Yitzhak daven. That means he experienced Geula, and he had the Ta'avta Kamamare. That's what it means. It means I once. By Yasa doesn't work because it's only external. He says he did this, and yet the it's did this. But Angario, he was drafted into the king's service. What was he demanded? What did they tell him to do? That Moivla Hadas Lapalti. They chopped him off the street. They needed someone to bring a myrtle to the king, and they told him, "Okay, we're chopping you." So how can you tell me that what Ein Hasatim Mekatrik Ba'oisa Hayoim that day? They took him into, they subscribed him into governmental work. Answers the Gemara, Amrulay, that was your reward. Hello? Adarabo. He says, Rabbi, Revuhi. Revu means, like Rivya, it's something good. It's a blessing to you. Is B'nei Enosh, there are many people that you haven't permitted, that they would pay money, Mechakim Paltin, to know the palace. You, for free, were allowed to stand in front of the king. Many times it says in Chazal that it's an inyan to see a goy, even a goyish king. So eventually, no longer eventually, so in the imminent future, when we're going to see Malach HaMashiach, we'll appreciate the difference between the kavod of the king of the world and the real type of kavod that will be given to Malach HaMashiach. In other words, you are interpreting your reality wrong. But you will interpret to be something not good. Adarabah, that was actually a blessing. Amar Avami. Let's go in the other side. Call me she'ena toikev golo tefillah. To a king's friend, Shabam, who came, and not only did he came, but v'hirtik al pischoy shemelach, he knocked on the king's door. Mamash, it sounds like what we have to speak about before slichas. What happens when you knock on the king's door? The king doesn't have to answer you. But just imagine, when the king knew it's you, he opened the door. But by the time he opened the door, you walked away. In other words, speaking about Geula is so dear to God that Hashem opens the door for us. So hello, so say Shemon Esnei. Yotza leidam al mevakesh. When the king opens up the door to find out what this person wants, umatzoi sheiflik, he finds that that person already went away. And you know what the king reacts with? The king himself then goes in the opposite direction. God forbid. Oid hu hiflik. When I was in Cheder, so what did my teacher tell me? That when you learn Torah every day, you're connected. When you walk away from the Torah, one day you don't learn Torah, you're not one day away, because when you go one day this direction, the Torah says, I will say, I'm going also away in the other direction. So one day is 2 days. The Jewish guilt and the trauma and the pressure. Okay, but that's the bottom line. Okay, so that's from both sides, and Pisco, we're getting used to it. That means that now when the Gemara is going to quote the Mishnah says, the third opinion, Rabban, right ahead of the Sanhedrin, Rabban Gamliel Omer, Achiyal Amud HaShachar. Says the Gemara, Asya the Rabban Gamliel Kerab Shimon. Oh, he's not only himself, there is a Rab Shimon that Rabban Gamliel holds like. The Tani B'Shem Rab Shimon for Adam Kodesh Shema. There will be times that a person will read the Shema. Achas, the first time will be Lifnei Amud HaShachar. And then he'll repeat it again, right afterwards. And that will be V'achar Amud HaShachar, then Daf Ches Amud Aleph. And then the Nimtza Yoytze Yedei Chavasai. When he'll do that, to fulfill his obligation, Shal Yoim V'Shalayla. So first of all, why do we see two things from Rabban Shimon? That you can read the Shema up until Alois HaShachar. That is the sheet of Rabban Gamliel. L'chu'ura, that's not the sheet of the Chacham. And you can read the Shema right after Alois HaShachar. That will be the next topic that we're going to get into. I just want to point out that when you do it in that Seder, which one did you read first? Shuki is on silent, but I can see the frustration. I have the same frustration. Look, you read the night. So, why wouldn't he say, I have no idea. Okay, at least we are awake a little bit to realize, and they're doing these things on purpose to make sure we're not sleeping. Okay. So says the Gemara, when you make a shidduch has to work both ways. So we said that the Rabban Gamliel holds like Rab Shimon. We want to know, that Rab Shimon holds like Rabban Gamliel. Because for Rab Shimon to say that you were Yoitze, the Laila, that's because you can say it until the Alois HaShachar. Let me see if the shidduch goes in the other way. Says the Gemara, Ha Rabban Gamliel ki Rab Shimon ba'arvis af b'shachris came. Does Rabban Gamliel hold like Rab Shimon, not only in this, but also in that? Let's go in this way. So by night, for sure, they have the same shita, which is until Alois HaShachar. What about by Shachris? What about by Shachris? Are they of the same opinion? Again, you can read the Shema in the morning. Lechatchila. I'm emphasizing the word lechatchila. You know why I'm emphasizing the words lechatchila? Because bidi eved, as we know from our Mishnah, ultimately, even the Chachamim hold you can read it until Alois HaShachar. So if the Brais is telling you a bidi eved, then we don't know that he holds like that Rab Shimon and Gamliel are of the same shita. So the Gemara understands that this Brais is speaking about a lechatchila, which means lechatchila you can also read Shema right after the Alois HaShachar. Oh yehei ba kiyei demar Rab Ze'eda Tanoi, or will Rabban Gamliel hold like the opinion, not like Rab Shimon, but like whom? Like Rab Ze'eda Tanoi. Now, normally you say the word Tanoi means Atana. No, not always. You had Bisman Ha'amoyroyim, every Beis Medrash needed to have someone who was blessed exceptionally with memory, and everyone knew the Mishnayos by heart. For that, you needed to have a child. But there were certain people that they knew every single Torah Shabbat. They knew all the Braises. Like today, you have Svarim. They didn't have it then. So Rab Ze'eda was called the Tanoi, the one who knew all of the Tanas by heart. And that Ze'eda was also the brother, Achoy, the Rab Chia bar Ashia. He was the brother of Rab Abba bar Chana. Now you notice that they had different fathers, but obviously they shared the same mother. Says the Charedim, 8 lines under the Gemara. Why are we giving all these? Why are we giving all of these references to Rab Ze'eda? Because there is a famous Rab Ze'eda, or the Stam Rab Ze'eda. And the Gemara wants to let you know that it's not that one, right? Rab Ze'eda Achad, who Hamuskar b'Chala Yerushalmi Stam. Rab Ze'eda Stam is the other one. Whenever we are quoting another Amoida, which has the same name, it's so important to know not just the name, that it's who it is, not the normal one, not the Stam one. He's the one that there was a mother, she got married many times, and there were different brothers from different fathers. Okay, now what? Rab Ze'eda. Now, another thing we have to remember, that the Anshe Mishmar, they would read the morning Shema right after Alois. Now understand something. Bidi Yevet, let's just repeat this. The normative opinion is that Shema, lechatchila at least, should be said Mishiyaka. The word Mishiyaka means from when you can recognize. And really, we have a machloikas. Is it Mishiyaka ben tchelas lekarte? But we're going to go with the Mishiyaka when you can recognize your friend when he's 4 amas away, or your acquaintance. Your friends, you can probably recognize the middle of the night from the way they walk. In other words, we need just a little bit of sunlight. Whatever the Mishiyaka is, look on your Zmanim, it's after Alois. I don't know if it's 50 minutes after Alois. It's a certain period after Alois. Everyone holds that b'diavad you can read the Shema from Alois HaShachar, because as we learned already in the Yerushalmi, that unlike night, a day into night, you have this bein hashmashas. Remember, night into day, go straight. Night, boom, day. Not from the Ayelas HaShachar, but yes, from the Alois HaShachar. The Anshe Mishmar, they got busy. They got busy by doing the Avodah. So for them to say the Shema, even at a b'diavad time, that makes perfect sense. Because if they won't say the Shema then, they're going to be occupied in the mitzvah of the Avodah, and they won't say the Shema. Question is, can a person who doesn't have that type of communal responsibility, could he say the Shema with them? So he says, "Akoidem anshe mishmar lo yotz." They were mashkimin. So here clearly we see Rab Shimon, again, the Gemara's understanding of the Braisa is that Rab Shimon holds that you can read the Shema lechatchila before Alois of the night, and you can therefore, it should be consistent, you can read Shema lechatchila after Alois for the morning. What is Shitas Rabbi Gamliel? The Gemara says either this or that. In the Babli, many times you would have the word teku. Here, the Gemara doesn't say teku, but this question remains unresolved. Okay. And now we'll open up the kasha that we're going to answer on Daf Tes, and we spoke it out when we learned the Mishnah. So the Mishnah gave 3 opinions. From when you read the Shema, the Mishnah only quoted one sheet. Even though we learned in the Yerushalmi, the other sheet in the beginning. That was a little bit from when the people of the villages would begin the meal Friday night. We said a little bit earlier. Kroivim, one next to the other. Until when the Mishnah brought 3 opinions. Atsoif Hashmoida Harishoino, Machlokes Tanoim, what does that mean? Rabbi Rav Nosson, Chachamim Archatzois, Rabbi Gamliel, Achiyala Amudashach. Then, Piska, the Mishnah says that Masa, and Shubo, one of Mebeis HaMishnah. And it's important to understand that this Mebeis HaMishnah is a justification of. They went to a chasana, they went to a simchas mitzvah. So they had an oinus, they had a reason. So they were already a b'diavad. It was after midnight. And they asked their father what to do. So the Gemara begins with the premise that the understanding is of the kasha is that the chachamim say only until midnight. Rabbi Gamliel basically is telling his sons, listen, do it. How does he have a right to paskin? And you can't answer because he was telling them his opinion. It doesn't work that way. In the Beis HaMedrash, everyone should have their opinion. When it comes to halacha l'maisa, there is a rule, yachad v'rabba ma'alachi kerabim. And the Gemara is going to bring various examples of different arguments between Tanoim, between Rab Meir v'chaveirov, Rab Akiva v'chaveirov. And they had their own opinion. But when it came to Apsag Din, Rab Meir and Rab Akiva paskin like the Chachamim, why didn't Rabbi Gamliel do the same thing? That will be the question of our Gemara. Says the Gemara, "V'Rabbanon palik al Rabbanon va'avid uvda kavasei." How was he allowed to do it? V'ha Rabbi Meir palik al Rabbanin. And yet, when it came to actual practice, v'lo yavad uvda kavasei. Rabbi Meir did not follow his opinion; he followed the opinion of the Chachamim. Another example, v'ha Rabbi Akiva, just laha'ir. How is Rabbi Akiva spelled? Rabbi Akiva spelled metahei. How do we spell Akiva in the Babli? Mitan Aleph. When you write a ksuba, how do you spell Akiva? Mitan Aleph. Just to be aware, these are bigger things over here. Of Rabbi Akiva, Palik, Al Rabbanin, and V'loyavadu v'kavos. And let's go with the brackets for Rab Shimon, Palik, Rabbanin, V'loyavadu v'kavos. And now the Gemara is going to go back to each one. All of this is going to be the kasha. And we're gonna finish today's share middle of the kasha. We don't take time to the answers. We can live with that kasha. The biggest kasha is where's Mashiach? That's the kasha that we're living. Oh, let's go to the first. Allah said, "Oh, ashkachnan the Rabbi Meir palak al Rabbanan." Where did we find that the Tanei The Tone is a Braisa. We have to get used to this. State Sachin Alvantis Lochoila b'Shabbos. So let's quickly chazir a few basic, simple halachas of Shabbos. Midrabanan, Zeta of Toichein, right? You're not allowed to take medicines on Shabbos. Cannot smear medicines on Shabbos. Why? Because you might end up grinding the herbs from where you make the medicines. However, there are exceptions. One of the exceptions will be that even if you have a choil, who in this case, alvantis is a shmirach, and we're going to see soon what it's made out of. That we're going to read the charedim. But that was also used by healthy people after they took a bath. And also to remember that even though at some time, Bisman Chazal, they made a gzeda not to take a bath on Shabbos. We know that, okay? In hot water. The last story of Masechta Shabbos are Amiroim taking a bath in cold water. Talking about bathing in hot water is also midrabanan. But before that gzeda, it was common that people took a bath in hot water on Shabbos. And after healthy people take such a bath, it was common for them to put on this alvantis. And what's the cloud? This is a good cloud to remember. That even though you're doing it because you're a chayla, the Chachamim normally made a gzeira, chayla cannot take any medicines on Shabbos. But if you're doing something that even if you would have been healthy, you would have done, can you have a certain type of drink, even though I'm having it because I'm not feeling well? If a buddy will have it also, you can have it. So that's the first one. Okay. Now let's read the Charedim because we have time and I'm a chaya, but I don't feel rushed. 5 lines under the Gemara. The Tani Sachin Alvantis L'Choyla B'Shabbos says the Charedim Mefarish Bebraisa. It's brought down in the Babli Avodah Zarah Daflam. Right, Beperek Amid. That what? Ezeu Alvantis. Vasidos. What is Alvantis? Yain Yoshan. It's wine in its second year. Remember that? There's Yoshan Noishan. Second year wine. Mayim Tzululin, clear water. That means maybe they filtered the water. And Va'afar Samoim, and balsam oil. And of the law, Lebei Masvasa, they would beat it together. Masvasa means for a medicine, for medicinal purposes. The Reish of the Braisa begins, Ein Oisen Alvantas B'Shabbos, you're not allowed to make it. But you can smear it, you can't make it. Peidish Rashi, why can't you make it? When the people use the lead, standing, when the Braisa begins by saying that you can't do it, you can't make it, that implies the if it was already made, then you are allowed to do. Who are you going to a merchatz? Yeah. But koydem gzeres a merchatz nishnish b'raisa zu as we bring down on Masechta Shabbos. That shetanoyim aynachlasim b'Shabbos lamerchatz v'sorchen achar v'sorchen. Kama v'achar kach osr chachamim and v'gazav lech lamerchatz v'Shabbos yisros. Very good. There we go. You know, it's anything that Briyim do b'choil muter l'choilam b'Shabbos. That's the bottom line. Making it, we're not allowed to. Why can't you make it? Because making it is closer to you beginning the process of harvesting the balsam, of you being toichen. It's interesting. Well, this heter, you got to do that since B'riyim do it, you can do it. This shita holds that's only to smear it, not to make it. To make it, we're already afraid of tchin. Emosai, like back inside the Braisa, Bisman Sheturaf B'Yain B'Shemen Erev Shabbos, when it was already properly mixed, the wine and the oil before Shabbos. But if you already have the ingredients, you're not going to be squeezing the grapes into wine. You're not doing that. You're not going to be getting the oil from the ground. No. But if it wasn't properly mixed, that's still awesome. It's the I B'riyim do it, and not at Kedekach. That is Shita number 1. Tani, yet we learned in the Braisa that Omar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, that Rav Meir disagreed with that. That Mater Hoyer Rav Meir, even the step before, not only shmiring, but even Litreif Yain V'Shem V'Lasach L'Choyla B'Shabbos. L'Choyla. Why? Because since B'riyim do it. In other words, he allowed not only the smearing, same concept. Anything that B'riyim do, no, Tchina you can't do. He was more lenient. He was more lenient, quoted in a Bryce. Happened that once Rav Meir was sick. Kfar Chola, meaning Rav Meir was sick. So his Talmudim says, Rebbe, let's make this alvantis for you. You hold, you can even mix it vigorously. But he didn't allow us. So we told to our teacher, Rebbe, it's bad enough if other people don't follow your opinion, but you're being mavatl your own words. So he said, yeah. So he said, and you see, it's not so simple. In other words, he's not paskening. We're not saying that he paskened like the Chacham. For others, he would pasken like himself. Machmed al ni al atzmi. Why am I machmed on myself? Because the Chacham disagree with me. Now, by the way, this is very nuanced. In other words, he's not saying simple that Yachid v'Rabba Malachi Kerabim, that to the others he would say like the Chacham. No, we're not saying that. To the others he would say like his own chief. To him, he would follow the Chacham. And by the way, the Kash of the Gemara still stands on this. Why? Because when you tell something to your children, it's like you're telling it to yourself. Well, the story in the Mishnah wasn't about someone else. So to his children, to him, that's why he should have said like the Chacham. That's Rameir. Now, another topic. The next we'll stop with this one. For that Ashkachnan, we find that Rabbi Akiva Palagal Rabbanan, and again V'lei Avad Uvda Kavase. Where do we find that? Is Kiyei this Seninan? That's a Mishnah. The Tani is a Braisa. Seninan is a Mishnah. Taman over there. Where is over there? Mesachtos Ahalois. These are very exciting halachas. It's a pity the Gabbai is not here. But Bekitzer, when it comes to Tumas Meis, guys, you have to see the smile on everyone's face over here. So you have to remember that there is the imparting of Tumah that happens through Maga, one set of rules. There's another Tumah that's imparted through Masa, Hesed. And then there's something unique by Tumas Meis, and according to Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, only by Jews, and that is Tumas Oil. That a bone, a fragment of a bone is metama, even if it's only in the size of a sa'ira. Yeah, that's if it is bemaga. But oil, you have to have a lot more bone to impart tumah. And there are many rules. One of them will be a full skull, shidra. Another rule will be the gulgoilus is the skull. The other one will be the shidra, the whole spinal cord. Then you have Roivat Samois, Roiv Minyan, Roiv Binyan. In other words, there is a larger minimum amount needed for it to impart tumah. Question will be, this is so exciting, what happens if you have a skull, but the skull is coming from two masons? You have a full skull, part from Reuven, part from Shimon. You have the whole Shedra from two masons. Do they impart to Messiah or do they not impart? Very important to know. Now according to the Mishnah, that Hashidra, either the spinal column or, that's important, the Gulgoilas, even though they don't comprise of Reva Atzamas. They don't comprise of Roiv Minyan, Roiv Binyan. But they're something so chashuv that they even impart to Masoyo. What happens if Mishnei Meis? Another rule. Revias Hadam, that left the mace after the person died, is also Matama Ba'oil. But what happens if you have the minimum amount, but Mishnei Meis? What happens if you have the quarter of a cup, but not from one corpse, from two corpses? Even min ameis, Mishnei Meis. Even min achai, Mishnei Anoshim. Machloikes. Rabbi Akiva mitamei, the Chachamim mitaharim. Okay, so atkan. So now we know there's a machloikes in which Rabbi Akiva is mach. In the first topic, Rav Meir v'Chachamim, Rav Meir was the makel. See there, what did we have? He says, I'm makel for others, for me, I'm machmer. Now we're going in the other direction. Rabbi Akiva was the machmer. To go from machmer to be lenient is much harder. A buildup. Now, yet we learned in the Braisa, Maisa Sheviu Kupa Malay Atzomis Mikfar Tavi. They had this whole kupa. It was filled with bones. Came from the village of Tavi. Then they did not put it inside. Right? They didn't know what it has in it. So they left it in the open air. Why did they left it in the open air? Because they were afraid to bring it into the Beis HaMedrash, because maybe it will impart tumah. Now, V'nichnas toidus. Toideres Haroifa. We had him in Babli. Who remembers where do we have Toideres Haroifa in the Babli? We had him, I think, in the Psachim. We had him in Shabbos. Google it. I think we had him in Psachim. V'nichnas Toideres Haroifa and the Nechzokol Haroifim Imoi. And Omar Toideres Haroifa, after he examined these bones, and he said, Ein kan shidra memeis echad. From one mace, you don't have a whole shedra. Nor golgoilis memeis echad. It's from two corpses. So the Chachamim said, listen to these words. Choyel v'yesh kan metarim v'yesh kan metamin. Okay, even though it wasn't from the same mace, but we already learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva still is metama it. So what did they say? We have a machloikis. So namad alaminyan. Let's count right now what everyone holds, because let's go with the doctors, or let's go if they, when they made that examination, they put it in a side room. What will be with the people that had contact with oil? What should we paskin? So they made a minyan. And who did they begin? You know who was there? Rabbi Akiva. They wanted to know, what do you hold? His chilu mi Rabbi Akiva. And what did he say? What's your opinion? What did he say? Tahar. V'tir. So right away they told him, hold on, Amru loy, hoyel v'hoyisa metame. We know that you were metame. Now halacha l'maisa v'tiharta. We won't even count other people. If you went from tame to tar, we don't have to make the count. Tar. So again, what do we see from over here, Chevra? We see from over here, this is much more than Ambeir. Why did he change his mind? Changed his mind because he knew that the Chachamim argued with him. This wasn't a discussion in the Beis Medrash. These were Yidden that had contact ba'oil. We're not talking about the doctor. We're talking about who, there was some contact ba'oil with that kupa of bones. We want to pass can you tahar or tamei Allah alamaisa. Rabbi Akiva knew yachad rabim Allah kirabim, not lechumra lekula. All of this is a build-up to the understanding of the story in our Mishnah, and we're going to leave up over here, and we're going to continue with the third bracket, right, that we had on Amud Beis of Rab Shimon, and then we're going to have to come and resolve the understanding of the story. The Rebbe always used to add, should be a revealed good year for all of us, and that is all connected to the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu Amen.
Man, thank you, Rabbi.
Oh.